What's up, everyone? We're back for another post-game episode of Locked On Bucks. And again, Milwaukee have lost another game of basketball. This time, the starters, for the most part, were on the floor, but it didn't matter. They lose 107-97 to the Brooklyn Nets in a game where Kevin Durant played, Ben Simmons played, Kyrie Irving played. So it was probably as close to a dress rehearsal as you could get, but they were still a little bit rusty, the old Milwaukee Bucks. They finished the preseason 0-5, so let's wrap it up and get started.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Bucks. I'm your host, Kane Pittman. You can see and hear me on this show Monday to Friday, and also find my work over at ESPN alongside me, the founder of brewhoop.com and longtime voice of the podcast, Frank Madden. And as always, we thank you for making Locked On Bucks your first listen or first watch of every day as well. If you haven't subscribed on your audio platform or on YouTube, we'd appreciate if you got that done now, because the preseason is out of the way. We're on the road officially to the regular season, but the Bucks finish a weird and certainly abnormal preseason slate 0-5. This game carried significantly more intrigue than probably the other preseason games, certainly to start, with Giannis playing, Drew Holiday back in the lineup, Brook Lopez, a more familiar-looking Bucks team. It didn't necessarily mean that they looked all that much better on the floor, though, Frank. Where do you want to start here? Because certainly by the time the Nets starters are checked out of this game, it really wasn't close.
No, Giannis hits 32 minutes. Drew Holiday played 35 minutes, which is interesting. But as you said, I mean, the Nets weren't exactly holding back by preseason standards either. KD at 31 minutes, Kyrie Irving 33. So the best players for both teams played a fair bit, but the Bucks they haven't looked sharp at all, I think is really what it comes down to. This game was not a game where it was like they just had a bad shooting night from three and the Nets made a bunch of shots and whatever. I mean, Bucks were 13 of 33 from three. The Nets were 9 out of 30. It's not like the Nets set the world on fire from 3-point range. The Nets were 12 for 22 from the foul line, which, I guess, you always look at a team with Nick Claxton as being a threat to have bad free throw nights. But it was really just everything else. And, we started camp talking about this idea of the Bucks, cutting down on opponent threes, and mission accomplished. The only problem is they literally haven't stopped any other type of shot teams, and Nets 51% overall in this game. And, what were they? 34 of 54. I mean, again, Bucks just got roasted inside the arc and in transition. I mean, the Bucks transition defense was non-existent. Like, that is not something that this team normally does very well, but they just looked, I don't know, I think Doris Burke, referenced the travel and everything. They just looked kind of like tired and kind of going through the motions for long stretches of this game. And, like Giannis coming back in late when the Nets had benched all their starters. And, I was just like, okay, I guess I'm glad that maybe Giannis is taking it a little personally, because he was really poor. I mean, 6 out of 21 from the field. Skill source 24 points because he got to the line a ton. But he just looked, he looked like he basically hadn't played at all from the preseason, which essentially he hasn't, right? It's only the second game. He didn't look good in the first game against Atlanta and Abu Dhabi either. So, yeah, I mean, just a very underwhelming preseason for the Bucks. And, Drew Holiday at least had his shot going a little bit, but he had 7 turnovers in this game. So, aside from Javon Carter, I don't know that anybody really covered themselves in glory for the Bucks this preseason. The list of winners and losers is very short on winners. Let's say, I don't know if they're really any like big losers because it's just preseason, but I think again, just Bucks would look like a team that really is missing Khris Middleton and is just really missing any kind of look of polish on the floor right now. And I thought it was funny. I don't know if many people were even watching at that point in the fourth quarter when Bud was getting interviewed. But he made the comment like, I think we've had a really good training camp, but we're not showing it on the floor, and we don't feel great about that. And So they've got now, essentially a week plus to iron some things out before they face the Sixers on opening night. But let's just say I'm certainly not like going into that game feeling like the Bucks are going to be raring and ready to start the NBA season. And you hope that they have a similar experience last year where they again didn't look good in preseason and then showed up and looked great on opening night against Brooklyn on ring night. But yeah, let's just say, hopefully they're starting to take this a little bit personally, and you hope pride kicks in at some point here, because definitely the play in the preseason, even putting aside the record, right? It's not like the Bucks looked good for long stretches, but the bench blew games in the fourth quarter. Like they only really had one game that they had a chance to win, and that was the Reserve Fest G League game. That was the opener against the Grizzlies. Other than that, no matter who's played, they really have kind of just at best hung around, and then in the second halves, teams have just rolled them. And again, I think defense, offense, not a whole lot to write home about on either side.
Yeah, so if you do look, and again, I think this would be heavily indicated by the Nets had their bench cleared, and the Bucks made this a little more interesting. But it was well into double digits by the time basically the Nets starters stopped playing. I saw a few people, and we generally go down this path of, okay, it's preseason. How concerned are we actually going to be? But yeah, they just really haven't looked good. And I think, Bud had a hint of annoyance. He threw a smile in at the end of the interview, but you could tell that he wasn't exactly pleased with the way the team was playing. And it's no surprise to anyone that Giannis would. He always tries to play hard. He was trying, I would say, tonight, but he also looked pretty frustrated, whether it was the way he was being defended, the fact that he wasn't able to finish some of those shots at the rim. He finally got an and one on a spin move, I think, in the third quarter. And he kind of just rested his head up against the stanchion and just took a few seconds, because I think he was starting to get annoyed. That's certainly what it looked like. I don't think he had a lot of fun in the matchup with Ben Simmons, in terms of the way he normally just completely obliterates preseason when he plays in limited minutes. So I did see a lot of people tweeting out the stat that the Bucks were 0-5 in preseason when they won the title. I can't remember, Frank,
0-3.
How they 0-3 was it? I can't remember how they looked in those 3 games, but yeah, I'm certainly going to be tuning in with curiosity on opening night, and probably a little uncertainty about how this team is going to look.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, my biggest concern is just the fact that there's no Khris Middleton on opening night.
Yeah.
And so just your margin of error is just necessarily a lot narrower, and going to put a lot more pressure on Giannis in terms of, he's not going to have those nice pick and roll actions with Khris. He's not going to have Khris throwing those alley-oops and look ahead passes that we're used to Khris giving him some easy buckets on. So it's going to be Giannis, obviously, and Drew, and Giannis, I think, is just going to have to shoulder a lot more kind of creation load than he might otherwise have to. And it's been hard to tell in preseason, because not only are you missing Khris Middleton, obviously Joe Ingles is out for the foreseeable future, but then the fact that Wes Matthews hasn't played either has also just made it kind of harder to tell, like, how's this team actually going to look and match up, because it feels like they're always either too big or too small, right? Like they're always playing. They've been playing these big lineups with Bobby and Brooke with Giannis, but then like tonight it was Javon Carter in the backcourt next to Drew, and then again, I mean, Drew can defend whatever, right? But you end up in this weird situation against a team like the Nets, because Drew's the one that started on KD, which size wise isn't a great thing. But what are you going to do? Like, we saw Giannis, he has a hard time getting over screens, and I don't think he's a great matchup for long stretches against KD either. So, yeah, I mean, we're saying the obvious here. Like, they just need Khris Middleton back. That will, I think, bring in not just kind of the offensive piece, but just, I think, defensively as well, just create a much more normal set of kind of matchups and rotations that you can go to. But we don't know when that's going to be, right? And I know we were talking with Eric the other day, trying to figure out like when we're actually going to see Khris Middleton. When you and Justin were talking about expecting maybe Khris misses the first month, that's like 14 games. I mean, like I didn't have much confidence that they were going to be certainly not the top seed in the East, but I think if Khris is missing that many games right out of the chute, no matter what the schedule is, I wouldn't pick them to finish second, and under those circumstances, right? I just think what we know about them in the past 2 regular seasons, they haven't had really extended stretches of looking good, and coming into a season with now Khris out, if it is 4 weeks, then again, just that margin of error, the degree of difficulty just goes up a lot, and it just feels like a sort of different version of last year when it wasn't obviously Khris that had all the injuries, but you had Drew out for a period at the start of the season, and then obviously after opening night, Brook was out, and they were really thin in the big ranks. So yeah, I mean, again, I think otherwise you feel like you avoided seemingly major injury in the preseason. I assume Wes Matthews is going to be fine for opening night. I don't think we've heard anything suggest otherwise. But Wes Matthews' health is suddenly extremely, extremely important for a team that, right now went their entire preseason basically without their kind of 3 primary small forwards. So again, like, the good news is Giannis stinking and the Bucks looking bad and, not defending well, not getting back in transition, all that ultimately doesn't count. We'll forget about the preseason record, pretty quick as long as they can, kind of get things going a little bit here in the regular season. But certainly it just feels like whatever value you could have gotten from the preseason in terms of getting rhythm and kind of really figuring out how you're going to play and some of the changes that, they seem to want to make, especially defensively, just doesn't really feel like they got a whole lot of value and reps out of this, right? But again, you got to get them at some point. Hopefully the I don't want to say the switch gets flipped, but hopefully the sharpness returns sooner rather than later, and some of these issues they're having get ironed out a little bit. But again, some of them also are just due to the fact that you don't have your second, third best player, and obviously you're missing other key guys as well.
Philadelphia, they actually went undefeated in the preseason, by the way, as well. So they're rolling, and you can tell that there are some teams that are motivated for different factors. Maybe we talk about Brooklyn a little bit in this podcast as well as the first kind of look at, well, really, I mean, there's only been a couple of looks in total of these 3 guys playing together for the Nets. And Khris Middleton gave an injury update on the broadcast. Actually, it was an extremely long interview with Khris Middleton on ESPN, but it was interesting nonetheless. But first, I want to talk about BetOnline. as I cough, BetOnline is your number one source for football betting this season, but they've also got the NBA odds, and you might want to check out the NBA odds. I don't know. Are people scared off by this Bucks preseason 0-5? Maybe there's some value there, but you can find out all the lines at betonline.net, along with individual matchups, awards, and all those types of things. BetOnline remains your continued source for all sports wagering information. It's the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite games and events, including the baseball postseason as well, MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to betonline.net or use your mobile device to learn more. That's BetOnline, where the game starts. You referenced we try and pick up the breadcrumbs when it comes to injuries with the Bucks, shall we say. But Khris did say on the broadcast today that he only started any type of ball handling today, which opening night is 8 days away. So at least we can fully confirm that he's probably not playing in 8 days. And if he's only just started ball handling, he said he started to do some very light shooting. No contact, though, probably a couple of weeks away. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be a fair stint without Khris Middleton. But that's probably as much detail as we've got about the injury at this point. So it was least interesting. What about the Nets, though? This is a different look, and I made a dangerous decision today on Twitter to tweet something about Ben Simmons that was even relatively positive about the way he played tonight. I thought he was good. And yeah, you attract some attention if you want to tweet anything positive about Ben Simmons. Let's just say that. But it's a different dynamic, certainly from James Harden with these two. Probably the best two perimeter scorers he's ever played with. Well, I think that's safe to say. So it is a completely different look. We've seen him defending Giannis. We saw Giannis defending Ben Simmons on offense a little bit as well. And yeah, you didn't have Middleton, you didn't have Wes Matthews. So things could change in terms of the matchup. But did you see anything from the Nets? Or what's your general thought on the Nets entering the season? Because they are still an unknown for the main reason that who knows if all these guys are actually going to continue to play throughout the season.
I mean, if they're healthy, then and they can avoid self-destructing and, fighting each other, or, Kyrie deciding that he's got some other cause that causes him to stop playing basketball or whatever, then they should be very good. They're probably the ultimate wild card in the East, or maybe in the league, to be honest, just because there's so much potential always with Kyrie in particular to just do things that, totally run things off the road and, make everybody's life more difficult. So, I think they're the boom or bust team of the season. And, in the playoffs a couple of years ago, we heard that they were, going to be a terrible defensive team, and they defended the Bucks better than anyone in their title run, right? I mean, the Suns, the Hawks, the Heat, certainly the Heat and the Suns on paper, much better defenses than the Heat. And Bucks scored like 117 offensive rating against those guys. And I think they were at like 105 or something like that against the Nets. I mean, they were really stuck in mud against the Nets. And obviously a lot of the personnel is changed over in terms of like some of the big guys, no Blake Griffin, no Jeff Green. So I mean, things are different. Obviously, you just have, Claxton's kind of your only like reliable, proven, quote unquote, proven big guy. And he looked really good tonight. I mean, he really feasted off of the attention that Kyrie and KD were able to get, and the Bucks really didn't do a good job accounting for Nick Claxton. So, yeah, I mean, again, it's just, can the Nets, not shoot themselves in the feet and the arms and the legs and the head by the end of the season? If they don't, then I don't think you're going to want to see them in the playoffs necessarily. But I thought it was a little eye-opening for sure that Giannis didn't seem to have any answers for kind of going at them. Again, like he was that play where he just backed down Simmons and just dunked on him and bumped him and kind of stared him down a little bit, and he rolled out a like 0-foot little hook shot that seemed to go down and just wouldn't. And his jump shot, I don't know that he's made one jump shot all of preseason in the 2 games he played. Like, he hasn't looked sharp at all with his jump shot. And but I think certainly the team defense was good from the Nets. And again, on paper, over a 7-game series, yeah, I think Giannis is going to do just fine against the Nets. But you can't take these things for granted. You just, especially in a situation like this, how much of this is preseason rust for Giannis. And I'm sure some of the reason why he wanted to stay in because he felt like he needed to get his feel back and needed to get his rhythm back. And now he's got to wait another week before he plays an NBA game. So whatever he might have gained, I don't know. And again, just sort of uniquely Giannis in that he could, I mean, that was a terrible Giannis game, and he still ends up with 24 points on 19 shots, which just kind of tells you how high his bar is and how high his floor is, even when he's not seemingly got anything going offensively. But yeah, it should be interesting, and certainly against Philly, Embiid and PJ Tucker now on opening night. I think PJ dinged his knee up in the game, the Philly game tonight, but I'm going to guess he'll be fine by opening night. So it will be definitely a challenge, especially with Philly not having to account for Khris Middleton and be able to really focus on Giannis and Drew on opening night. So yeah, I'm moderating expectations. Like any sad sack old school Bucks fan, I'm trying to manage my expectations, even though I know this is a championship caliber team.
You do seem a little bit flat tonight, Frank. Are you starting to get down about the Bucks? And you're on mute. Hey,
I'm feeding off the Bucks' lack of energy and bringing that same lack of energy is what I'm doing, Kane.
we need you to bounce back. It's not good enough. It's a preseason. They haven't lost the regular season game yet.
That Abu Dhabi, just watching them play in Abu Dhabi tired me out. So, I didn't have to sit on a 14-hour plane flight, but, such is life.
Well, I will say, and Doris Burke, as you mentioned, did reference not only the flight, but definitely referenced the back-to-back a few times. And I did feel like saying, like, all these guys playing didn't even go to Chicago. I don't think
Giannis didn't even go to see his brother. I was surprised. Giannis, I don't think was even in the building, was he? I mean, which was funny because Kostas ended up playing. You feel like Giannis. Giannis. They would make trips to Oshkosh to see like Alex and Kostas play and stuff like that. Like, so part of me is just like, man, no love for brother Kostas. But yeah, I agree. You can't blame tonight on the back-to-back. I mean, the back-to-back was stupid. Don't get us wrong. It's stupid to have a back-to-back in the preseason, especially when you've literally just come back from, a flight half a world away. But yeah, I agree. A little rich to blame the struggles tonight on the back-to-back. Javon Carter didn't look like he was struggling on the second night of a back-to-back game. At least we can always count on Javon Carter, Mr. Reliable from the Bucks 2022 preseason.
Is Javon Carter a better playmaker than Grayson Allen?
Oh yeah, Grayson Allen didn't play tonight either. I'm trying to think well, why did the lineups look so weird? Playmaker? I don't know. It's kind of one of these things. Like I can't think of a single like impressive pass Javon Carter's made. Like to me, he's kind of like a game manager, caretaker. Yeah, he's good to getting to like that kind of like elbow extended range and. Has really good touch from there. He's never getting to the rim. Obviously, he's not like an explosive guy and he's really small, but the 3-point shooting has been, again, he's at 50% again for the preseason. And I mentioned George Hill also above 50% quietly. So yeah, essentially the Bucks backup point guards, whatever shooting we didn't see in that Boston series from the Bucks, apparently Javon Carter and George Hill are locked and loaded here coming into the preseason. So save some of those bullets for the playoffs, guys.
So I didn't think, last year, and it's been probably a consistent theme with the Bucks. And last year they were coming off a couple of guys obviously were at the Olympics. So yeah, I think we tempered our expectations and everyone was just really excited for ring night, but I think there was some uncertainty, but the way they just blew the doors off the nets, all of a sudden you had this reassurance that you just carried with you for the next, few months, because even if they look bad, you're like, well, we've seen it. They can turn it on. It's fine. I wouldn't want to see them get blown out on opening night because that would probably raise a few more questions, particularly with Khris out of the lineup. But this is the last preseason post-game pod. Thankfully, I think I'm done with them. But is there any thoughts you want to leave us with? I asked you this last night, and I think look, it hasn't been the most overwhelmingly positive experience this preseason. But is there anything left you've got?
Marjon Beauchamp hit 2 threes, and there were a couple moments where he had to guard KD or Kyrie. KD kind of took him one-on-one and settled for a mid-range jumper, which obviously whatever, KD can hit those all day, but missed it. But I thought that was kind of like what I would hope Marjon looks like in an average regular season game. And again, whether he actually plays in a regular season game, like I'm not holding my breath here, but if he were to get an opportunity, had an early open 3-point look, buried it. His second shot was kind of like he was in Bucks versus Bulls. Nobody's out there. I'm just going to chuck shots mode. Like Giannis was Giannis like about to post up or something? I don't know, but Giannis was like right in front of him and he kind of like hesitated and then put up the 3 that was pretty well contested. And I was kind of like, yeah, that's not a shot you take when you've got Giannis and, other legit dudes on the floor. But then he had another catch and shoot 3 to start early in the fourth quarter. as well. And, just no fouls, no turnovers. Like, just make the simple play. Don't get caught, doing stupid rookie fouling stuff. If he does those things, then, as we've been saying all along, then, his runway to being able to be competent in minutes is a lot shorter. And again, whether, he actually translates into playing time, who knows? Probably not going to see him if Wes is back and, the non-Khris and Joe Ingles group is relatively healthy. But, it was encouraging to see him, again, not doing a ton because of who was out on the floor with him, but just knock down those open corner threes, stand, be capable looking defensively, don't make mistakes. That's really the kind of the ask of him. And, I think I'm not going to say he passed with flying colors, but that was another positive step. I think it's been a positive, 36 hours for him between these two games. And, now it's just a matter of just nose to the grindstone, whether he's playing or not, going into the regular season, and just hopefully being ready for at some point when he does get a chance.
When he did put up that shot, I did think about how adamant I was on last night's podcast that he wouldn't take those shots with Giannis on the floor. But hey, we admire the confidence, and we admire everyone for making Locked On Bucks their first listen every day as well. But for your second listen, go check out the Ultimate Pro Basketball Preview 2022, a 6-episode extravaganza to get you ready for the NBA season. The local team experts, including myself and the NBA insiders of the Locked On Podcast Network and Odyssey, all combined into one ultimate NBA preview. Search for the Ultimate Pro NBA Preview 2022 on your Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Do we have to, now that we've seen preseason, I'll have a podcast tomorrow. I'm going to podcast with Camille. Everyone loves when Camille's on the podcast, so we'll have a chat tomorrow. But we've got a few days next week. I believe the Bucks are having an open scrimmage on the weekend, which I'm sure plenty of our listeners will get to. And then next week, I guess we should do over-unders, right? We should probably do that.
Yeah, annual tradition. We'll do them, and then we'll forget all about them. That's what we do. But yeah, let's do over-unders. What's the over-under on AJ Green having a roster spot by the time we do our over-unders? I don't know what it is. I was just livid to see him I think he came in the first quarter of this game and he only played 6 minutes. +4 though. +4. Marjon Beauchamp +14. Hey, there you go. I think he was the beneficiary of maybe some of the Giannis versus Scrubs lineups there late, but yeah, we'll do over-unders, and hopefully I hate being a jerk about AJ Green having a job, but I think everybody who's been listening to us knows we continue to not understand why AJ Green has a two-way spot with the Milwaukee Bucks, and I don't know. Let's just leave it at that. Hopefully this gets answered for us at some point soon.
He did take one contested mid-range today when Giannis was on the floor in a possession where Giannis didn't touch the ball, and I thought that might be the last straw for Giannis. But anyway, we'll see. See what happens over the next few days. But if you've got any funny over and unders that you want us to attack, so I better stop this podcast. I'm starting to fall under the weather here. But yeah, if you've got any funny over and unders for us, let us know in the YouTube comments and we'll hit them. We've always got a few silly ones. I made the mistake last year of going over and under for Giannis mean mugs, and I realized after 5 games that this was going to be really, really difficult to track. And plus, I was well and truly way under. This man was doing about 3 a game. So anyway, let us know. We'll hit that next week before opening night against Philadelphia. But Frank and myself will leave it there. See you guys tomorrow.